What started as a routine traffic stop on a rainy Tuesday quickly devolved into a nightmare of corruption and blatant racism, until the officer realized he'd pulled over the absolute worst person possible. The rain was coming down in sheets, the kind of dreary, soul-soaking drizzle that makes you want to curl up with a good book and forget the world exists. I was on my way back from my mom's house, 2 hours of highway hypnosis behind me, and another one to go. My Acura's wipers were fighting a losing battle, and the soulful melody of an old Etta James track was the only thing keeping me company. I was off the clock for the first time in what felt like a month, dressed in my most comfortable gray hoodie and a pair of worn-in jeans. For all intents and purposes, I was just another woman driving home on a miserable Tuesday afternoon. That's when the world decided to remind me that for a black woman in America, there's no such thing as being just another anything. The flash of red and blue lights exploded in my rearview mirror, a sudden violent burst of color against the monochrome gray of the day. My heart did a familiar little tap dance against my ribs, a rhythm of annoyance and anxiety that every black person I know has committed to memory. I checked my speedometer. 64 in a 65. I hadn't changed lanes in 10 minutes. My registration was current. My insurance was paid. There was no reason. But reason, I've learned, is often the first casualty in these encounters. I pulled over to the shoulder, the tires crunching on the wet gravel. I turned the music down, rolled my window a quarter of the way, and placed my hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, just like my dad taught me when I was 16. Wait. Comply? Observe? Survive? The lessons never really change. The officer took his sweet time getting out of his cruiser. He was a big man, the kind whose uniform seemed a size too small, straining at the shoulders and around his thick neck. He approached my passenger side first, peering in, his hand resting casually on the butt of his sidearm. Then he slowly ambled around to my window. He leaned down, his face a mask of smug authority beneath the brim of his hat. He didn't have to say a word. His posture screamed that he was the hero of this story, and I was, by default, the villain. License and registration, he grunted, the rain dripping from his hat onto my armrest. I didn't flinch. I slowly reached for the glove compartment with my right hand, keeping my left firmly on the wheel. "I'm reaching for my glove box, officer, to get my registration and insurance," I said, my voice as calm and steady as a surgeon's hand. He just watched, a faint smirk playing on his lips. I handed him my documents along with my driver's license. He took them, his eyes flicking from the photo on the license to my face, then back again. He shone his flashlight into my back seat, which held nothing but a bag of my mom's famous sweet potato pies. "Keisha Williams," he said, drawing my name out like it was a bad taste in his mouth. "You know why I pulled you over?" "No, officer, I do not," I replied, meeting his gaze in the rearview mirror as he walked back to his car. I waited. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Etta James had long since faded into silence. All I could hear was the rain and the thumping of my own heart. This part was always the worst, the waiting, the not knowing, the powerlessness. My training screamed at me to analyze, to profile, to assess the threat. But the woman inside, the daughter who just wanted to get home with her mother's pies, was just plain scared. He finally returned, swaggering back to my window. He leaned in close, and this time the smell of stale coffee and unearned confidence filled my car. "Well, Miss Williams, I ran your plates. Clean record. Good for you." He paused for dramatic effect. "But you rolled right through that stop sign about a mile back. A clear violation." My mind raced. There hadn't been a stop sign for the last 5 miles. It was a straight shot of county highway. He was lying. Boldly, shamelessly, lying to my face. "Officer, with all due respect, I don't believe there was a stop sign," I began, but he cut me off. "Are you calling me a liar?" he snapped, his voice turning hard. "Because on top of that, I'm getting a strong smell of marijuana coming from your vehicle." My blood ran cold. That was the magic phrase, the skeleton key that unlocked a dozen constitutional violations. I don't smoke. I never have. The only thing my car smelled like was the cinnamon and nutmeg from my mom's pies. "I'm going to need you to step out of the car, ma'am," he ordered. I complied, my movements slow and deliberate. The rain soaked my hoodie instantly. He patted me down, a little too thoroughly, and then instructed me to stand in front of his cruiser, in the full glare of his flashing lights. Then he began to tear my car apart. He wasn't searching, he was punishing. He dumped the contents of my glove box onto the passenger seat, threw my gym bag into the back, and then he found the pies. He opened the bag, sneered, and tossed them onto the wet floor mat. A little piece of my heart broke seeing my mum's hard work desecrated like that. After a few more minutes of fruitless ransacking, he came up empty. I could see the frustration on his face. He'd expected to find something, anything, to validate his baseless stop. But then a slow, predatory smile spread across his face. He reached into his own pocket, his back mostly to me, but his movements visible in the reflection of my wet car door. When he turned back around, he was holding a small plastic baggie containing a trace of white powder. "Well, well, well," he said, his voice dripping with mock surprise. "Looks like it's not your lucky day after all, Keisha. What do we have here?" He held it up for me to see. My mind, the one honed by years at Quantico, the one that could dissect a crime scene in minutes and profile a suspect from a single piece of evidence, went into overdrive. This was a classic plant. Textbook. He was sloppy, arrogant, and believed I was just some dumb girl he could intimidate. He thought he had me. He thought my life was now in his hands. He walked over to me, his shadow swallowing me whole. "You know," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "this is a felony. Possession with intent to distribute, given the quantity." He gestured vaguely with the tiny, obviously planted baggie. "You're looking at serious time. 5 years, maybe 10. You'll lose your job, this nice car, everything." He let the threat hang in the air, letting the rain and my imagination do the heavy lifting. I stayed silent, my face a carefully constructed mask of fear. I let him think he was winning. "But," he continued, moving a step closer, "I'm a reasonable guy. I can see you're a nice girl who just made a bad decision. Maybe this evidence gets lost on the way back to the station. Maybe the report gets filed incorrectly. Mistakes happen. There it was, the pivot from harassment to extortion. What would a mistake like that cost me?" I asked, my voice trembling just enough to sell the act. He smiled, a wolfish, triumphant grin. He looked me up and down, sizing me up. "A girl with a car like this, I'm sure you can afford to make a significant contribution to the Policeman's Benevolence Fund. Let's say $2,000? Cash, of course. And this all just goes away. You get to go home and eat your pies." He thought he held all the cards. He saw a scared girl in a hoodie, caught with contraband, desperate to save her future. He had no idea he wasn't talking to Keisha Williams, the pie lover. He was trying to extort Senior Special Agent Williams of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I let the silence hang for a moment, letting him savor his perceived victory. I looked up from the ground, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. The fear in my expression evaporated, replaced by something cold, sharp, and utterly devoid of emotion. His smile faltered slightly. I took a small, deliberate breath. "Officer Miller," I said, my voice suddenly calm, clear, and resonant, reading the name from his badge. "Are you familiar with Title 18, Section 242 of the U.S. Code?" Officer Miller blinked, the rain plastering a lock of greasy hair to his forehead. He stared at me as if I'd suddenly started speaking in tongues. "Title what? The hell are you talking about?" A nervous tick started at the corner of his eye. He was trying to process the shift, the sudden absence of fear in my voice, and his brain was clearly coming up short. He defaulted to what he knew best, brute force intimidation. "You think being a smart mouth is going to get you out of this? I've got you dead to rights, girl. Felony possession. Title 18, Section 242, I repeated, my voice as cold and hard as the rain-slicked asphalt beneath my feet. Deprivation of rights under color of law. It's what the federal government charges dirty cops with when they misuse their authority to frame innocent people. You know, like planting a baggie of evidence you pulled from your own pocket. I let my eyes drift pointedly to his cruiser. It's a shame your dash cam is angled just a little too high to catch your hands. but it'll have a perfect audio recording of this little shakedown attempt. And my phone? It's been recording audio and video from my cup holder since the moment you lit me up. The cloud is a beautiful thing, isn't it?" His face went from confused to furious in a heartbeat. The mask of authority crumbled, revealing the ugly, insecure bully beneath. "You're bluffing," he spat, but there was a tremor in his voice. "You're just another junkie trying to weasel your way out." "Eh?" He took a step forward, grabbing my arm in a painfully tight grip. "You're done talking. You're going to put your hands behind your back, and you're going to get in my car. Now." His fingers dug into my bicep, and every instinct in my body screamed. My training kicked in, a quiet hum beneath the surface. I could break his grip in 3 different ways before he could even blink. I could disarm him in 5 seconds. But that wasn't the play. Not yet. I had to see this through. I had to let him dig his own grave a little deeper. "Take your hand off me, Officer Miller," I said, my voice dangerously low. I didn't struggle. I didn't even raise my voice. I just looked at him, letting him see the absolute certainty in my eyes. The certainty that he had just made the last mistake of his career. "Or what?" he sneered, pulling me closer. "You'll file a complaint? Or this becomes an assault on a federal officer," I said flatly. "And believe me, you do not want that." I watched the words land. He recoiled slightly, not because he believed me, but because of the sheer audacity of the statement. He thought I was delusional. He was about to find out how wrong he was. "Your name is Mark Miller. You're 43 years old, divorced twice. You have a nasty gambling habit you fund by shaking down motorists on this stretch of highway. Usually minorities, usually for a few $100. $2,000 is ambitious for you, Mark. You must be feeling bold today. Your partner, Dave Heston, usually works this shift with you, but he called in sick. So you're out here all on your own, thinking no one's watching." The blood drained from his face. His grip on my arm loosened, his knuckles white. The rain, the flashing lights, the entire world seemed to fade away until it was just the 2 of us on the side of this dark, wet road. He was looking at me now not as a suspect, but as a ghost, a phantom who knew his darkest secrets. Who are you?" He stammered, his bravado completely gone, replaced by a raw, naked fear. I didn't answer. Instead, I slowly reached into my back pocket with my free hand. Miller flinched, his hand instinctively going to his weapon. "Don't," I warned, my eyes locked on his. "You'll only make it worse." I pulled out my service-issue phone, its screen glowing in the gloom. He watched, mesmerized, as my thumb flew across the screen. I hit a single number on my speed dial and raised the phone to my ear. It rang once. "Go for Vance," a gruff voice answered on the other end. "Director Vance," I said, my voice ringing with an authority Miller had never heard before. "This is Special Agent Williams. I've made contact with our guy. It's exactly as the informant said. He's dirty. I'm on County Road 12, just past the old bridge. He's gotten physical, and he's attempting to extort me with planted evidence." Miller's mouth hung open, a strangled gasp caught in his throat. He let go of my arm as if he'd been burned. He was shaking his head, backing away, his eyes wide with terror and disbelief. No, this is a prank. It's a trick." "Negative, Director," I continued, never taking my eyes off the unraveling cop. "He's all yours." I listened for a moment. "Yes, sir. Understood." I hung up the phone and slid it back into my pocket. I looked at Miller, who was now pale and sweating, despite the cold rain. "My supervisor is en route, Mark. He's not as patient as I am." Just as the words left my mouth, another pair of headlights cut through the downpour, approaching from behind Miller's cruiser. It wasn't the sleek black vehicle I was expecting. It was another patrol car, lights flashing. Relief washed over Miller's face, quickly followed by a renewed sense of confidence. It was his partner, Dave Heston. He must have decided to come in after all. "You're in for it now," Miller snarled, his fear momentarily forgotten. "That's my partner. You're going to jail for a long, long time." The second cruiser pulled up, and Officer Heston got out, a big, lumbering man with a confused look on his face. "Mark, what the hell is going on? I thought you had this handled." Miller pointed a trembling finger at me. "This bitch is crazy, Dave. She's making all these threats. pretending to be some kind of fed. But Heston wasn't looking at his partner. His eyes were fixed on me, his jaw went slack, and the color drained from his face even faster than it had from Miller's. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. His lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then he managed a single, horrified whisper that cut through the sound of the rain. "Oh my God, you're her!" Miller stared at his partner, utterly bewildered. "Her? Who the hell is her, Dave?" He looked back at me, then at Heston, his brain trying to connect dots that weren't there. "What are you talking about?" Heston ignored him, taking a hesitant step towards me. His hands were raised slightly, a universal gesture of surrender. "Agent Williams," he said, his voice shaky. I swear to God, I didn't know it was you. I told him not to. I told him this was a bad idea." "You told him not to get caught, you mean?" I corrected, my tone like ice. "You were fine with the shakedowns as long as you were getting your cut." I saw the flicker of truth in his eyes before he looked away, ashamed. "The informant we picked up last week sang like a canary, Heston. He gave us everything. Your whole little roadside robbery scheme. Names, dates, amounts. He even mentioned that Miller had gotten sloppy, arrogant, that it was only a matter of time before he targeted the wrong person." I gave a humorless smile. "Looks like tonight was that time." Miller's face was a grotesque canvas of dawning horror. He looked from his terrified partner to my impassive face. "Agent? Informant? What is this?" His voice was barely a whisper. The reality of the situation was crashing down on him like a tidal wave, and he was drowning. That's when the real cavalry arrived. 2 black, unmarked SUVs roared up the shoulder, their headlights slicing through the rain and pinning the 2 local cops in a blinding glare. Doors flew open, and 4 men in dark tactical gear emerged, weapons at a low ready. My boss, Assistant Director Vance, stepped out of the lead vehicle. He was a tall, imposing man in a tailored suit that somehow seemed impervious to the rain. He surveyed the scene, his gaze finally landing on me. "Agent Williams," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, sir," I replied, a wave of relief washing over me. The adrenaline that had kept me sharp and focused began to recede. Officer Miller was just about to explain the intricacies of his Policeman's Benevolence Fund. Vance nodded slowly, his eyes locking onto Miller, who looked like he was about to collapse. "Officer Miller, Officer Heston," Vance said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "You're both under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, and deprivation of rights under color of law. You have the right to remain silent." As 2 of my fellow agents cuffed a stunned and whimpering Miller, Vance walked over to my car. He peered inside, his lips thinning as he saw the mess, the scattered papers, the overturned bag, and my mom's sweet potato pies tragically smeared across the floor mat. He looked back at me, a flicker of genuine anger in his eyes. "He threw out your mother's pies?" I managed a small, tired smile. "Collateral damage, sir." He sighed and gestured to one of the agents. "Bag all of this. Everything. The planted narcotics, the dash cam footage, they're service weapons. I want a full forensic workup on Miller's uniform. I'll bet my pension we find trace evidence from that baggie in his pocket." Heston, to his credit, didn't resist. He was smart enough to know the game was over. Miller, on the other hand, finally snapped. "You can't do this," he shrieked as he was being led to one of the SUVs. "I'm a police officer. You set me up. That black bitch set me up." Vance turned, his expression turning to stone. He walked over to Miller and leaned in close, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper that I could still hear over the rain. "Listen to me very carefully, you pathetic excuse for an officer. That black bitch, as you so eloquently put it, is Senior Special Agent Keisha Williams, one of the most decorated undercover agents in the Bureau's history. She spent the last 2 years dismantling organized crime rings you wouldn't have the courage to even read about. Taking down a couple of corrupt, racist, small-town cops for her? That's not even a challenge. That's a day off. You didn't just target the wrong woman, you targeted a force of nature. And now you're going to face the consequences." They shoved Miller into the SUV, his racist shouts muffled as the heavy door slammed shut. The world was suddenly quiet again, save for the steady rhythm of the rain. I stood there for a moment, letting it all sink in, the water washing away the filth of the encounter. Vance walked back over to me. Internal affairs at their department has been notified. The chief is on his way here. He's not happy. Apparently, this isn't the first complaint against Miller. I'm not surprised, I said, my voice weary. I looked at my car, the interior a shambles. Well, so much for a quiet drive home. Go on home, Keisha, Vance said, his voice softening. We'll have your vehicle towed, cleaned, and returned to you tomorrow. Put this on our tab. He paused, then added, and tell your mother I'm sorry about the pies. I'll have flowers sent. I finally laughed, a genuine, cathartic sound. She'd prefer you just make sure these guys never wear a badge again, sir. Oh, Vance said, a grim smile touching his lips as he watched the SUVs pull away, their taillights disappearing into the stormy night. You can consider that done. As I sat in the back of my boss's warm, dry SUV, watching the flashing lights of my own impromptu crime scene fade behind me, I thought about the encounter. The smug superiority on Miller's face, the casual cruelty, the absolute certainty that he could do whatever he wanted to me, simply because he could. He saw my skin color and my gender, and built an entire story around it. A story where he was the hero, and I was the mark. He never imagined, not for 1 second, that I could be anything more. He couldn't have known that my real uniform was hidden beneath a gray hoodie, or that my greatest weapon was the mind he so badly underestimated. He tried to write me into his sordid little tale of corruption, but he was about to find out that I was the one holding the pen. And in my story, the bad guys always get what they deserve.